headlines. Korea and New Zealand officially sign a free trade agreement. What kind of impact will this have on the two economies? Korea's financial industry is not performing as well as other sectors in the country. We go deeper into what's holding it back and possible solutions. And Singapore mourns as Lee Kuan Yew, the founding father of Singapore, dies at the age of 91. Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News. Live from Seoul, I am Chery.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We start at the nation's top office, where President Park Geun-hye held talks with visiting New Zealand Prime Minister John Key.
The two leaders officially signed a bilateral free trade agreement, which comes after 5.5 years of negotiations. Our Choi You-sun starts us off.
President Park Geun-hye said Monday's signing of the Korea-New Zealand FTA will go down in history as a major event in 53 years of diplomatic relations between the two countries.
FTA 정식 서명으로 이제 양국 관계는 경제 분야는 물론이고 문화 또 인적 교류 그 안보 또 국제 협력 이런 다방면에서 한 차원 더욱 높은 그런 협력을 해나갈 수 있는 중요한 토대를 마련했다고 생각합니다.
On his fourth visit to Korea, Prime Minister John Key thanked President Park for her leadership in resuming trade negotiations after a 3-year deadlock.
I'm sure that the benefits to Koreans and New Zealanders will be significant over the years ahead, and so this is a very special and beautiful day to be in Seoul.
Both countries have agreed to remove tariffs on most of their traded goods in 15 years. However, nearly 200 products categorized as sensitive items for Korea, such as rice, are exempt from the pact. Aside from trade, New Zealand will expand its working holiday quota to 3,000 Koreans a year and share training on its advanced agriculture and fisheries technology. At Monday's talks, the two leaders also discussed ways to integrate initiatives involving creativity and innovation as a new growth engine, agreeing to increase cooperation in science, ICT, and film. President Park said the latest trade deal will give Korea's agriculture sector an opportunity to become more globally competitive by learning from the New Zealand experience. She also anticipated more job opportunities for Koreans both at home and abroad. Choi You-sun, Arirang News.
Compared to Korea's other mega FTA partners, such as the United States and the European Union, New Zealand is a smaller market. Our Shin Se-min takes a look at the economic benefits that this deal could bring to Korea, as well as some of the concerns.
The latest free trade agreement between Korea and New Zealand is set to increase trade beyond the approximately $3.2 billion generated last year. Most of the exchange products will have little to no tariffs, with Korea eliminating duties on 96% of all shipped goods from New Zealand in the next 15 years, and New Zealand removing all taxes on Korean goods in 7 years. Korean exporters shipping small electronic goods, auto parts, and heavy equipment will see a boost as these goods will enter the market with low tariffs. And New Zealand's popular imports? Wine, beef, and dairy products. The pact will just swap more than just products. It'll also open doors to Korean youth employment in New Zealand and easier exchange of agricultural technologies and expertise. New Zealand's Zespri has already helped Jeju Island kiwi farmers.
This year, Jeju Island kiwi made it into the Singaporean market for the first time, contributing to the regional economy. And Korean companies are also making headway into New Zealand with an ICT company that manufactures a smart card for transportation.
But Koreans in the dairy and livestock industry aren't happy, as New Zealand's strong dairy industry will increase competition in the domestic market. Korea's Rural Economic Institute projected over 2 trillion won, or $1.8 billion worth of domestic losses. But some experts advise patience.
This is part of improving our competitiveness in the long run by giving a wider selection to consumers. Lowering trade barriers is only one part of the FTA's benefits.
Although New Zealand isn't a large exporting partner, experts say with the right amount of government regulation and thorough monitoring, the agreement will generate mutual economic benefits. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
A fire that broke out in North Korea early Monday and quickly spread to the South Korean side of the heavily guarded demilitarized zone continues to blaze. The South Korean military said flames reached the south at around 1 p.m. Korea time. Firefighters on the ground have been battling to contain the fire amid strong winds. No casualties or damage have yet been reported, but the Inter-Korean Transit Office, which is the commuting route for South Korean workers at the Kaesong Industrial Complex, has been temporarily closed. The exact cause of the fire is still unknown. Officials say the fire will be watched carefully overnight. Full firefighting operations will pick up again at daybreak. And meanwhile, the South Korean activist group, which had planned an anti-North Korea leaflet launch this Thursday, has called off its plan. Park Sang-hak, the group's leader, told Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency on Monday that he won't fly the controversial leaflets at this time. Explained that North Korea's warnings of counterattacks show how much they fear the leaflet campaign. Park said he will end the launches for good if the regime takes responsibility for the sinking of a South Korean warship, the Cheonan, which left 46 dead back in 2010. Earlier this month, Park revealed plans to fly 500,000 anti-Pyongyang leaflets and DVD copies of the U.S. film The Interview in time for the 5th anniversary of the sinking of the ship.
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang Sean Lim and Kang Chery from the heart of Seoul.
Begins now.
Primetime news, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
With bilateral ties between Korea and Japan at one of their lowest points in recent history, a group of Korean political and economic leaders are trying to mend the frosty ties. They met with the Japanese leader in Tokyo today, calling for efforts for improved relations. Our Connie Kim has the story.
A group of veteran political and economic leaders from South Korea has called on Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to restore strained bilateral ties. They said both Seoul and Tokyo should create conditions for a summit. Abe reportedly responded with a vow to strive for improved relations now and for the future of Japan. Japanese broadcaster NHK, however, said that Abe called for summit talks with no strings attached. The Japanese leader is set to deliver a World War II anniversary statement in August, but there are concerns that he will shift away from an apology issued in the 1995 statement by then Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama regarding Japan's wartime atrocities. Abe has said that he wants his statement to reflect the current government's position on historical issues. Ahead of today's meeting, the South Korean delegation met with Japanese representatives on Sunday to discuss bilateral cooperation as this year marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Relations between Seoul and Tokyo are at a historic low, mainly due to Abe's repeated denial of Japan's historic wrongdoings. The former Korean and Japanese leaders plan on meeting again in May to come up with a proposal for diplomacy that they plan on presenting to both President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Abe. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Korea's last Ebola support team returned from a one-month mission in Sierra Leone. All the medical volunteers are clear of the deadly virus, and upon the one-year anniversary of the brutal epidemic, a leading medical group has slammed the international community for its slow response to the crisis. Kwon So-wa has more.
It's been roughly a year since the deadliest Ebola epidemic in history broke out in West Africa. Countries around the world, including Korea, have contributed to the efforts to contain the virus. Korea sent medical teams to Sierra Leone, one of the three countries most affected by the virus. It was the first time the country dispatched medical teams to an epidemic of this size. A total of 3 teams of volunteer doctors and nurses embarked on roughly 1-month missions after prior training sessions in England. All members returned home safe, though there was a close call when a rescue worker was pricked by a needle carrying a patient's blood. Tests revealed the worker did not contract the virus. Although the decreasing number of new Ebola patients has also reduced the need for international staff, the fight is not over yet. In Liberia, the first case in around 3 weeks has officials concerned. 42 days without an Ebola case would have declared the country virus-free. A leading charity group, Paris-based Doctors Without Borders, released a 1-year anniversary report on Monday, saying the epidemic could have been contained much earlier. The report criticized the international community, including the World Health Organization, for its slow response. The crisis was declared 3 months after the first reports of Ebola outbreaks. The charity also blamed local governments for downplaying the situation and not sharing significant data with their organization, suggesting a better controlled crisis could have shrunk the death toll, which currently stands at over 10,000. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
In this week's Industry Insight, we take a look at Korea's financial sector, which is lagging far behind many of the country's other industries.
Financial firms in the country are advised to stop pursuing easy profits and start thinking outside the box. Our Hwang Jie tells us more.
Korea's financial industry remains relatively underdeveloped compared to the overall competitiveness of its economy. It's been more than a decade since Korea first expressed desire to develop its financial sector, but surprisingly, it's still at about the same level as Uganda and even lower than Colombia and Ghana. So what's been pulling back progress?
When Korea's new chief financial regulator took office last week, he sharply criticized the industry, saying it's only interested in generating easy profits by raking in the interest it earns from lending to investors. He said the banking sector is ignoring its duty to invent new markets and products. Korea's record low key interest rate also indicates that relying on time-honored sources of income is no longer going to cut it. Korea is considered a financial no-go zone for many foreign banks, with big names like HSBC closing its retail business unit here and Goldman Sachs closing its asset management unit a couple of years ago. A former central bank executive was also in charge of the Financial Stability Department says the withdrawals are clear examples of why the Korean banking sector is struggling.
They leave because of the regulation, ring-fencing behavior, Korea-specific regulation, which does not exist at their home country.
While pundits call for measures to tackle such issues, they add that more attention should be focused on developing the country's capital market. That by, for example, allowing more authority for brokerage firms in terms of fees, interest rates, and dividends.
Korea's financial industry has been riding on the back of the banking sector for so long. To ensure we take the next step forward, the government should create an environment where the capital market and the banking sector can coexist.
Analysts also say that the chopping and changing of economic policies under different administrations is why Korea's financial sector has lost its way over the past 10 years. So it's crucial the entire system starts pursuing new and creative plans to take it to the next level. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Millions across Singapore are mourning the loss of the country's first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew. He was 91 years old when he died this morning.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, this man has been described as a true giant of history, not only for his contributions to Singapore, but also the greater Asia region. How are the people of that country coping?
Well, of course, there's a deep sense of loss across the city-state. In the wake of Lee's death, the government has declared 7 days of mourning, and world leaders are also paying tribute. And despite criticism of his tactics, Lee is widely seen as the mastermind behind modern Singapore's tumultuous path to a wealthy global financial hub. Arirang's Kim Ji-yeon has more.
Singapore's founding father and his first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew passed away on Monday at the age of 91. His eldest son and incumbent Prime Minister Lee Kuan-yew declared a week-long period of national mourning after announcing the death, saying his father passed away peacefully at the Singapore General Hospital. Lee Kuan Yew was admitted to a hospital early last month for pneumonia and had been on life support ever since. For days, thousands of people had been leaving flowers and cards praying for his recovery, but now those messages are filled with words wishing their revered leader farewell. The Cambridge-educated lawyer was one of the most influential figures in post-colonial Asia. He's credited with transforming Singapore from a British outpost to a global trading and financial hub in just a single generation. Singapore became one of the world's wealthiest nations during Lee's rule. Its GDP per capita stood at around $13,000 in 1990, soaring up from just $400 in 1959. Even after stepping down as Prime Minister, Lee was a towering figure behind Singapore's rise into an Asian economic tiger. Last year, the country's GDP recorded over $55,000, Asia's highest and the world's 8th highest. While he is praised for raising Singapore from rags to riches, Lee was criticized by some for his harsh handling of dissenting views to his authoritarian rule. Alongside his market-friendly policies, Lee held strict controls over the press, public protests, and his political opponents. Despite the criticism, a chorus of tributes followed from world leaders, including U.S. President Barack Obama, who hailed Lee as a true giant of history who'll be remembered for generations. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said Lee was a legendary figure in Asia, respected for his strong leadership. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye is planning to attend the state funeral for Singapore's late founding father on Sunday. According to the presidential office, Park will pay her respects to Lee Kuan Yew's son and current Prime Minister Lee Hsien-loong. Earlier in a statement, Park sent her condolences to his family and the people of Singapore. She also referred to Lee as a friend to Korea and a figure who played a key role in enhancing relations between the two countries. And shifting now to Beijing, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang has met with the heads of the world's leading development banks. That would be Christine Lagarde, the director of the International Monetary Fund, and Takahiko Nakao, the president of the Asian Development Bank. It comes a day after both pledged support in China's goal in establishing a new top investment lender in the region. Our Song Ji-sun has the details.
With some 30 countries on the roster as founding members, Beijing is garnering international support for its Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, set to begin operations by the end of the year. World Bank President Kim Yong-kim said the two organizations are discussing how they can work together, while the leaders of the IMF and the Asian Development Bank said they would be happy to cooperate with the new regional lender. Beijing has previously indicated that the AIIB would seek to complement, not compete with, the existing international institutions. However, Washington has cautioned other countries against joining, citing concerns about transparency and Beijing's increased influence in the region. It recently proposed co-financing project with existing development banks, saying it welcomes new multilateral institutions that strengthen the international financial architecture. Meanwhile, Washington's key strategic allies in the region are considering joining the AIIB. Japan and Australia have shown interest but have yet to decide, and Korea is expected to announce its decision this week before the AIIB's deadline of March 31st. Seoul is reportedly seeking a share that's high enough to allow it to participate in decision-making. China has offered to fund up to 50% of the $50 billion fund. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
And finally, turning to the United States, the head of America's Central Intelligence Agency has issued a warning of sorts to Iran amid ongoing talks to downsize the country's nuclear program. CIA Director John Brennan warned of, quote, tremendous costs and consequences for Tehran if it pursues development of a nuclear weapon. Brennan made the remarks on Sunday in an interview with U.S. broadcaster Fox. The intelligence chief, however, did express optimism that current talks on a potential nuclear deal are better positioned than they've ever been in the past. This as Iran is set to join international negotiations in Switzerland later this week to firm up a framework that's workable for all sides. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Che with the Sports Brief. Starting with golf, South Korea's Kim Hyo-ju put on a dazzling display in the closing round of the JTBC Founders Cup to claim her second career LPGA Tour victory. The teenager made the important shots in round 4 to finish at 21 under par overall and 3 shots over runner-up Stacey Lewis. After earning her first win in 3 starts, Kim jumps to 4th on the world rankings and 7th on the tour money list. In addition, she's now a top contender for Rookie of the Year. With that, golfers of Korean heritage have won all 6 LPGA events this season. Other than Lydia Go, who represents New Zealand, all are South Korean nationals. Meanwhile, swimmer Park Geun-hye met with world swimming body FINA over his doping case with his career hanging in the balance. Park, his team of lawyers and Korean Olympic Committee, and swimming officials of the country faced the FINA doping panel in Lausanne, Switzerland to talk about the circumstances of his failed test for testosterone. He faces a ban of 2 years or more, which would take him out of the 2016 Rio Summer Games and effectively end his career. The panel is expected to hand down a ruling by the end of the week. Over to the KBL playoffs, the ET Land Elephants hosted the Dongbu Promi for Game 3 of their semifinal series. Now, both teams had a hard time scoring to start, but the Elephants eventually built an 8-point lead by the 4th quarter. That came crashing down as the Promi pried away the win in the final period. They take the 2-1 series lead as both teams stay in Incheon for Game 4 Wednesday. Over to pro volleyball, the KEPCO Vic Storm hosted the OK Savings Bank Russian Cash for Game 2 of their playoff meeting. KEPCO powered to the first set lead and stayed alive with a 4th set comeback. But OK Savings Bank were the better team at the end of the 5th set, earning them not only the match but also the series victory. They'll face defending champions Samsung Hwajae Blue Fangs in the championship, starting with Game 1 Saturday. Finally, with a new name, a new team, and more games, the 2015 KBO League season makes its fresh new start in D-5 days. Managers and players from the league's 10 teams hyped up the upcoming season at its Media Day and Fan Festival on Monday. Now, even so, the buzz was already high with expansion team the KT Wiz getting started, and the season expanded to 144 games. Teams will be gunning for the title, currently held by the Samsung Lions, as soon as the season kicks off Saturday. That wraps it up for me. Your weather's up next. Good night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather outlook. Yellow dust has finally moved out and air quality is back at normal levels under mostly clear skies. So this morning we were greeted by a cold snap and it looks like numbers will remain about 4 to 5 degrees lower than the seasonal average through early Wednesday. And do keep in mind that wind chills are keeping conditions chilly, so make sure to dress accordingly. We will start off the Tuesday morning between -7 and 3 degrees, which is slightly lower compared to today, while daytime highs should peak from between 10 to 14. So be aware of the big gap in numbers from day to night. At the moment, most regions are under dry weather advisories and humidity levels are down at 25% here in the capital, and there's no news of showers this week, so make sure to keep hydrated and also be extra careful when dealing with outdoor fires. On to Tuesday's readings. Seoul and Busan should reach a high of 12, Daegu 14, Gwangju hits 13. Meanwhile, Jeju peaks at 11, Dokdo hits 7, Mount Kumgang reaches 1. Those are the updates I have for you now. I'll see you next time. Good night.
And that's primetime news for this Monday. Thanks for watching. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Chery. Have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you again soon.